Okay, so picking up where we left off, where he's giving a definition of the gentleman. So to have a cultivated intellect means to know a little bit of everything. To have a delicate taste is to be able to know the difference between like a fair mac and cheese and a really amazing mac and cheese, right? Or one kind of fabric between a beautiful silk, refined fabric. So being able to know the difference between what is kind of the gradations of what is poor, good, average, above average, and excellent. Now let's look at this. This is important. Candid. Candid means honest. Okay. Equitable means fair. Dispassionate means devoid of the passions, using reason. And to be noble means to give respect where respect is due and to treat people with respect and to have a courteous bearing, right? To be kind to people, to treat everybody the same in your conduct. He said these are all the co-natural qualities of a large knowledge, and they are the objects of a university. So this is what we are hoping that in 4 years you leave with, right? To know a little bit of everything. When you walk into a room, you can talk a little bit about everything with somebody at a cocktail party. You know the difference between what is good and what is excellent when it comes to different gradations of things that you encounter in life, right? You're honest with people. You are fair with people. When you are discussing a topic, you are not fueled by your emotions, but rather you are dispassionate. You can separate how you feel from what you think. And this allows you to be open to new ideas, which is really important, right? In the discourse of life, whether it be personal or political. To be noble, to be courteous to people, right? That this is what will naturally happen to you the more that you know, right? He says, though, however, this is different than being a good person, right? Let's skip down here where he writes that, surely we're not driven by theories of this kind. And here he says, I say liberal education viewed in itself is simply the cultivation of the intellect as such, and its object is nothing more or less. And so this is the point of what you should be pursuing now. Intellectual excellence. The pursuit of knowledge leads to intellectual excellence. And excellence is something that, you should always be striving for because it's very important to want to have the best version of things, right? We always say we're living our best life. That's exactly what it's talking about. In your situation, you want to make sure that you are doing everything to the best of your possible ability. He writes that everything has its own perfection, be it higher or lower in the scale of things, and the perfection of one is not the perfection of another. Things animate, alive, or inanimate, not alive. Visible, we see. Invisible, we can see. All are good in their kind and have a best of themselves, which is an object for pursuit. And I do have to impress upon you, the reason why you should set the bar very high for yourself is because if we set the bar low for ourselves, then how low will we really live at a very base, primal level? You want to set the bar high because we are human beings. We create civilization. We have things that the animals cannot even conceive of doing. So that means that our brains require of us to live on this higher plane, not primal, not base, not animalistic. He continues that a beauty leads to nothing beyond itself. There is a physical beauty and a moral beauty. There is a beauty of person. There is a beauty of moral being, which is natural virtue. And in like manner, there is a beauty, there is a perfection of the intellect. And before that, he talks about how we take time to groom our home, to clean our homes, to groom our yards, to clean up the leaves after they fall from the tree, to trim the flowers and the bushes and to make our homes nice. He says, why do you do this? Because there is a best. There is a best way. There is a best presentation. And why not live in the peace of knowing that you are nurturing and guarding and maintaining the best, right? And then he continues on where he mentions these heroes. He says the heroes of whom history tells, Alexander, he's referring to Alexander the Great, or Caesar or Scipio or Saladin, are the representatives of that magnanimity or self-mastery, which is the greatness of human nature. Now listen, I always tell you, I love it when writers give us a clue or a new definition for something that we've heard a million times. So I definitely want to know what the greatness of human nature is, right? That I would love to know. He says it right here, magnanimity or self-mastery. So for your dictionaries, that magnanimity should definitely be in there. And I want you to write it. But I'll tell you right now, it's a wonderful definition. It is the kind of person who is both humble and giving and compassionate and wise and generous. It is just the kind of ideal human being. And self-mastery is just another way for self-discipline, controlling yourself, right? We do have desires. Our desires can become unwieldy. And it is very much our responsibility as owners of this body that you're in to control yourself. You don't have to eat too much. You don't have to drink alcohol too much. You don't have to abase yourself and push yourself and your body to the limits. So controlling our emotions, our actions, our behavior is very much aligned with the kind of people that we are. And if we can be generous, kind, compassionate, wise, and control our emotions and our desires, then we have attained the greatness of human nature. And here he gives what I like to call, I've kind of self-defined this as the practice of intellectualism, but let's look at it together because he gives us a kind of step-by-step guide to this is how you should be learning, students. All right, so this is what your directions are. To open your minds. And every pronoun after that word mind is reflecting back and referring back to that original noun or referent, the mind, okay? So to open your mind, to correct your mind, to refine your mind, to enable your mind to know, to digest the things that you know, to master yourself, to rule over yourself, to use your knowledge, and to allow your new knowledge to give it power over your own faculties, to apply your knowledge, to be flexible with yourself, to understand method, to want to be critically exact, to be sage or wise, to be resourceful with the things around you, right? Like Shinsu says, the gentleman is no different than anyone else by birth. He just knows how to make good use of things, to be resourceful, to address the proper issues when they need it, to express yourself eloquently and articulately. This is an object of intelligible here we are inquiring, not what the object of liberal education is. This is not what the church requires of you, but this is what college requires of you. And it is an object as intelligible as the cultivation of virtue. So it is a worthy pursuit as much as going to church or going and practicing some religion to become a better version of yourself morally and in yourself spiritually. It is just as worthy as that pursuit, even though it is completely separate and absolutely distinct from it. So he's saying you should pursue your religious studies. You should pursue your moral pursuit to become a better person in the world. And I refer you again to Aristotelian Table of Virtues, which shows that every desire that we have, either in lack or in too much, is a vice. And there is this perfect line of virtue that we are to live in, this perfect range, right? And he's saying, just like you pursue that because you want to be better, you want to be a better parent, better child, better person in the world, you also want to pursue with that same rigor the pursuit of knowledge, because it will give you something which is intellectual excellence, right? And in condition to doing useful knowledge, religious knowledge, then my goodness, what a good life you will have. Now let's look at this very last paragraph. It's very important. This is a takeaway, and it really is the importance of hitting home what he is saying here. He's saying this indeed is but a temporal object. Now he could be referring to the mind. He could be referring to life. He could be referring to our body. But I think he's referring to the mind here. Again, that pronoun going. This indeed is but a temporal object. Your mind is not going to be here forever, just like your life, right? And transitory possession, just like your body. You're using it and then it's gone. But so are other things in themselves which we make much of and pursue. The moralist will tell us that man in all his functions is but a flower which blossoms and fades. Japanese culture tells us that that's why the cherry blossoms are so beautiful and so treasured, because they bloom for only an instant, and they're so gorgeous and fragile. And if you ever see wet cherry flowers on a tree, cherry blossoms on a cherry tree after the rain has come, there's even Ezra Pound wrote about how beautiful and how fragile it looks, and how it really is a beautiful analogy of life on this planet. But a flower which blossoms and fades, except so far as a higher principle breathes upon us, right? Something has given us this animating nature in our body, some call it a soul, and makes him and what he is immortal. So there is a part of it, and of course, because he's a priest, he is definitely including his belief that there is a human soul that is eternal, that is carried from somewhere, that is carried to somewhere. He says body and mind are carried into this eternal state of being by the gifts of divine munificence, or God's goodness or grace. But at first they do but fail in a failing world. We do struggle in this world that some will call broken or imperfect, or maybe even dystopian. He says, and if the powers of intellect decay, if our powers of our mind decay, then it's because the powers of our body have decayed before it. And just like a hospital, though its end be ephemeral, right? Like a hospital, it keeps you alive just for a little bit. A hospital can't keep you alive forever. Ephemeral is another word for temporary. Just like a hospital may be sanctified to the service of religion, so surely may a university, even if it were nothing more than as he's just described it, just for the pursuit of knowledge, for the sake of knowing, for the pursuit of intellectual excellence and to have virtue, we attain to heaven by using this world well. Even though this world is going to pass away, even though we are going to pass away. And we perfect our nature. Now think back to Shinsu, how he said, man is evil. We perfect our nature. And Shinsu said, man is evil, and the only way that we can be good is to change our nature, like you bend the wood through soaking it in water. And Newman says the same thing, not by undoing nature, but by adding to it, not by hating what we are and trying to make ourselves something that we are not, but by beginning with what we are given and saying, hey, I can add to this and I can make it better. I can make it more than what I was born with. I can make it more than just animal, primal, human instinct. And I could direct this mind and this body and this soul towards something higher, higher than the flesh, higher than the world, higher than time itself in my mortal body, the sun that rises and the sun that sets, higher than its own. And that is exactly what the Greeks believed. They said that the education that we get in this world, we take with us to the other side, because it actually changes and alters our soul. And not only for our time here on earth to help other people, but also for the time after, which we are not even aware of yet.